Hello, friends. How are you this evening? I hope you're doing well. I just wanted to come to you tonight to talk to you about the supernatural element, as there always is in the dark world, light work energy. The supernatural element to my exodus from my former life. In the last few videos, I've been talking about the very earthly reason why I left Las Vegas, why I ended up in the car, why I ended up without my home that I had lived in for almost 20 years. And today I want to talk about the spiritual element that caused me to make such an abrupt exit from that life and that world. And I did not look back other than the time when I tried to get back for some things, and it was a very bad idea, and you can read about that in the book. You can read about actually all of this in the book, but I thought I would talk about it because it's very interesting, and maybe it would interest somebody in reading the entire book if I tell you a lot about what's in it. I think that's probably a good marketing strategy, don't you think, friends? Anyway, towards the end of my time in my former life, I began to get the sixth sense, or whatever it would be, the inkling, the feeling that something very dramatic and very tragic, even on more dramatic and tragic, on top of all of the tragedy that was happening in my life, was coming for the situation that I was in. I sensed that death itself was on the horizon in that situation. And that was honestly the reason why I made the decision to just go to a completely different state and not look back so quickly. And that was the decision that I made without my conscious thought. It was a decision that I made with my heart. Each time, I stayed with my neighbor one night, and that was it, one night. Then I stayed with my friend one night, and that was it. I really felt like I kept trying to think of a way to stay in Las Vegas, away, and nothing was making sense. The only thing that made sense to my heart was, you have to get out of here. And I told my aunt, she was helping me a lot, my oldest aunt, towards the end, and she took me out to lunch one day, and I can't remember where we were. It was like a Panera kind of vibe. And I told her, I was like, I feel like death is here, coming for this situation, whatever that means. And I don't want to be here for it, because it's just too much. And the situation was already just horrendous. It was already a heinous situation, and I just sensed it being even worse. And so the day that I got locked out, I really did make the plan just to go. And I did want to go someplace that I felt would be healing. And I ended up leaving and staying gone for about 7 or 8 months. When I came back to the news that someone, my father's longtime companion, had been murdered. I talked about this before. I find out about it. None of my family members tell me. Nobody told me. I found out about it when I came back to Las Vegas, and I was staying at a friend's house for a reason you can read about in the book. I think I've mentioned it before. And I saw it on YouTube. And they were on YouTube because they had a little bit of fame in the area, because they owned a restaurant that was pretty popular. And so I didn't even, this was 7 or 8 months later, like I said, after I left. I didn't even put those pieces together that I left to avoid that situation until a year or so after that, when I had time to decompress from everything and step away from the whole thing. And it really wasn't even like a moment where I had to rest for real. It was just a significant amount of time had passed, and I had thought through it to a point where I said, oh, wow, I really am an example of how rejection is protection. Like, I was rejected by everyone in my family And had anybody given me the opportunity to stay in Las Vegas in that situation, it could have very well cost me my life, just due to the nature of the crime that was committed against this woman, and what I believe to be the impetus for this crime. I believe that it could have been me. It could have been anybody close to the murder, because this person snapped. So that was really interesting. And at the time, I was carrying the armor of God, fighting in the name of the prophet Jesus Christ, as you can listen about on my Spotify playlist. And so I felt very blessed. There is a part in the Christian Bible where Jesus says, "Leave everything you have and follow me." He says this to his disciples. And there is a man who tells him, "I have to go home to bury my father. So I will do that and then I'll catch up to you." Something to that effect. And Jesus tells him, "Let the dead bury their dead. Leave everything and follow me." Meaning leave it all. Leave even the burden. Leave the guilt. Leave the shame. Leave even the curiosity. Leave it all. Leave the flesh behind and follow me. And let the dead bury their dead. And not with my head, but with my heart. I did that. I made that decision when I got into my other car, the Dark Knight, and drove away and did not look back for all intents and purposes. And so when I put those pieces together, I was very humbled and honored to have been given the opportunity even to walk such a hallowed and righteous path. And then I was very grateful to myself, proud of myself for making the right choice, because it was a choice that would lead to earthly poverty, but spiritual abundance that I truly cannot put into words. It's something that only can be explained by experiencing it oneself. And for people good and bad, I do hope for that kind of ascension. I hope that in the future it doesn't take the sort of sacrifice that I and others have had to go through to get there. I hope that it is more of a given in honor of our sacrifice, particularly the prophet Jesus Christ, who really bravely gave his flesh and blood in a time when nobody had any clue what any of it meant. He was just like a rock star. He's just like, I'll go and be executed for it. Let's do it. So that's pretty wild. I like that kind of energy. And I do, right up to that point, as you can see, maybe, carry that. Like, let's go, whatever it takes. Whatever it takes to get us there. And that is all that matters in the end. So that is the spiritual reason why I ended up here in this type of situation in this life. You do have to give up earthly possessions in order to elevate and evolve in an intellectual and spiritual and metaphysical way. That's just the way of everything, even the way of the samurai. Every single evolved being has to go through this thing where you shed your old life, you shed all the stuff that you thought was the world, all the stuff that you thought was important. You realize you were worshiping the wrong things. You go and you stare at a single blade of grass until you understand. You get it? And then you get on your knees and you thank the earth and the grass and everything. And then at some point you stand up, right? That's how it works. Dark World Lightworks. All right, that's it. Love you. Bye.